Hi everyone, Svetlana Sotek here. It's wonderful to be back, and today I have a new tutorial on how to make this easy, beginner-friendly shoulder bag. This bag finishes at 12.5 inches tall by 11 inches wide by 4 inches deep, and the strap is 27 inches long. The bag features a simple snap closure, and I didn't add any pockets to this bag because I wanted to make it as beginner friendly as possible, but you can definitely go ahead and customize your bag to fit your needs. So you can either add a slip pocket to the outside or the inside of the bag, or you can go ahead and add zipper pockets as well. And I already recorded a video on how to add a welted zipper pocket to pretty much any bag, so I will put a link to the video in the description below so you can check it out. To make this bag, you will need half a yard of fabric for the exterior of the bag and half a yard for the lining. Now I recommend that you use either canvas, duck canvas, or home decor fabric for both exterior and the lining of the bag to give it a little bit more structure. You will also need a yard of medium weight fusible interfacing, and my favorite is Pellon SF101. You will need 28 inches long webbing. This is a 1 1/4 inch wide webbing, but 1 inch wide or 1.5 inches would also work okay. For this bag, you will need a snap. I'm using a cam snap and the setting tool that came with it. And you will also need a ruler, a rotary cutter, and a cutting mat, and all the standard pressing and sewing supplies. I went ahead and cut out all the panels I will need for my bag. So all the panels are 16 inches square or 41 centimeters square. And I will need 2 panels for the exterior of the bag, 2 panels for the lining, and 2 interfacing panels, and those interfacing panels are going to be attached to the wrong side of my exterior panels. And as I mentioned before, I also have my webbing, which is 28 inches long or 71 centimeters long. Now that the interfacing is fused to the back side of my exterior panels, I'm going to place my panels right sides together on top of each other. Now, let me show you. My pattern is a non-directional pattern on this fabric, so it doesn't really matter in which direction it goes. But if you have a directional fabric, make sure this is where the top of your fabric is and this is the bottom. And now place the panels right sides together, like so. Line up all the edges. And now I'm going to use a ruler and a fabric pen to mark a 2-inch square along each of the bottom corners of the panel. Okay, so the bottom corners. This is your bottom panel or bottom side. And I will place the ruler along the corner like so, along my 2-inch mark, 1 2 inches, 1 2 inches, and draw the square. 1, and then the other one on the other side, like so. And now I'm going to use my fabric shears to cut along the drawn lines. And this is what the panels look like. Okay, your exterior panels. And I'll go ahead and do exactly the same thing for my lining panels. I set my lining panels aside for a little bit, as now we will be working on assembling the exterior of the bag. So I'm going to again place my panels right sides together, line up all the edges, smooth the panels on top of each other, and I'm going to use some sewing clips to hold my panels together. You can use either sewing clips or pins, whichever you have on hand. Either one works fine. Okay, you don't need that many, just a few to hold the panels together. Okay, and I'm going to take this panel to the sewing machine, and I'm going to stitch along this side edge, bottom edge, and again up the side edge using 1/2 inch seam allowance. And I will be back stitching at the beginning and end, but just make sure that you are not stitching into these notches. These stays open. So it goes down this way and up. And here are my exterior panels sewn together along the side and the bottom edge. And now I'm going to press the seams open. And to do that, again, my iron is set to a cotton setting and some steam. And first I like to go with my iron over the stitches just to set them in place a little bit. And then first I open the seam with my fingers, finger press it, and then press it with an iron. And now I'll flip the panel to the other side and do the same on the other side. And now I'm going to reach inside the bag with my hand like so, which helps me flatten this bottom corner like that. I will line up the seams over each other, keep them open, and we'll use a clip to hold it in place. And you see how it makes it a nice and straight edge right here for me. And I'm going to take it to the sewing machine and stitch along this edge right here using 1/2 inch seam allowance, back stitching at the beginning and end. And I will do the same for the other side. I'm now going to turn my assembled exterior of the bag right side out, like so. And with my fingers, I'm going to push these corners out to make them neat. And the same on the other side. And this is our exterior of the bag is all assembled now, and it's time to add the strap. So the strap is going to be placed along these side seams. So we will center the strap along the side seam like so. I'm going to use a clip to hold it in place, and I will do the same on the other side. Just as you're doing this, make sure you do not twist your strap. Okay, and again, place it here. Use a clip, and now I'm going to take it to the sewing machine and stitch along this edge using about 1/8 inch seam allowance, stitching back and forth a few times just to secure the handle in place. And here's my exterior panel with the handle all nicely attached. I'm going to set it aside for now and work on the lining of the bag. So here I have my two lining panels right here. They're placed right sides together. And again, I'm going to do the same as I did for the exterior of the bag. So I will use some clips or pins to hold the panels together, stitch along the side and the bottom edge using 1/2 inch seam allowance. The only difference is that I will leave about a 5 inch opening in the bottom seam. Okay, so I will stitch from here, back stitch here, and start stitching here again and stitch here. And this little opening will be great for us to turn the bag right side out for the final assembly. So, and then after that, I'm going to press the seams open the same way as I did for the exterior and stitch the gussets of the bag closed. Okay, my lining panel is now finished. And like I said, the only difference between the exterior panel and the lining panel is that there is a hole. I left a 5 inch hole in the bottom seam of the lining for turning. And then of course, the exterior panel has a strap attached. So now it's time to put the panels together. And I'm going to place the exterior of the bag inside of the lining. So remember that right side of the exterior and right side of the lining are together. Okay, and now I'll smooth it out, line it up, and I'm going to line up the side seam, lining side seam over the exterior side seam and use a sewing clip to hold it in place. And I'll do the same on the other side of the bag. Again, line up the seam. Keep the seam open and clip it in place, like so. Now smooth out the top edges, and I will add a few more clips to hold the top edges together. Okay, so I'm clipping through both exterior and the lining of the bag. Make it nice and smooth, and do the same on the other side. And now I'm going to take it to the sewing machine and stitch all the way around the top edge, again using 1/2 inch seam allowance, back stitching at the end. And I can feel where the handle is, and as I come closer to it, I want to make sure that the handle stays nice and straight at a 90-degree angle when I'm stitching. And again, as I'm coming closer to the handle, I check to make sure that it is nice and straight, pushed down. And now I'm just going to press along the seam that I stitched, just to set the stitches a bit. And I will turn the bag right side out through the opening in the lining. So simply pull it out. Pull the bag all the way out, and I'm going to give it a good press right here along this top seam. So press right here. and do the same on the other side. And now that it's done, I'm going to gently push the lining inside the exterior of the bag. And I'm now gently adjusting the lining so it sits nicely inside the bag. And I usually like to leave a tiny lip of the lining sticking out around the exterior of the bag, maybe just like 1/16 of an inch or so, just a little bit, to give it a little bit of an interest. And I'm using my sewing clips. You can use pins to hold the layers together. And as I go around the top edge of the bag, I sort of smooth the seam out between my fingers and my thumb. Smooth out the lining, make sure it's all nice and straight. And now I'm going to take the bag to the sewing machine and again stitch all the way around the top edge of the bag using 1/8 inch seam allowance and then a 1/4 inch seam allowance, and back stitching at the end. And this way it will give me a nice finished edge on the top of the bag. So I used a very dark thread for my bag assembly just to make it easier for you to see what was going on. But now that I'm doing the final top stitching, which will be visible, I switched to a much lighter beige thread that will match my bag a lot better. And I also removed my extension table so I have better access to my area where I'm sewing. And again, like I said, I'm going to use 1/8 inch seam allowance first and then stitch 1/4 inch away from the first stitching. And I will hold my thread ends in my hand as I start. And this way it helps prevent any knots on the back of my stitching. And with the top stitching, make sure you find the pace that works for you. Go at an even speed. You don't have to go too fast, and because you want your stitches to be as even as possible. As I'm adjusting my bag, I also always make sure that my lining is nice and straight so I don't get it crooked or get any puckers in it. One row stitching is done, and I'm gonna go for one more just to add a little bit extra. It looks a bit better, and also it secures your handle a little better. So again, holding the end of my thread. And I have just one more thing to do, and that's to stitch this hole in the lining closed. And because the seams were pressed open, the seams should nicely fall over each other. Again, I'm going to use just 1 or 2 clips to hold the opening closed. And use 1/8 inch seam allowance, back stitching at the beginning and end. I push the lining neatly inside the bag, and I'm just going to give it one more press before I add the snap, and we'll be finished. And on the other side as well. All that's left to do now is add a snap, and as I said before, I am using a cam snap and a setting tool that came with it, but any snap of choice will work fine. And we are going to add the snap to the middle of the bag, 3/4 inches down from the top edge. So what I like to do is fold my bag along the side seams, place side seam over each other, and fold it here on the side. And this will give me a nice mark for the middle of the bag. And then I will bring a ruler here and make a mark where the 3/4 of an inch is, right here. Could even open it up and mark it there. I don't want to make too many marks so I don't ruin the fabric. But again, the same thing here, like I can mark the middle point right here, open up the bag, and then find 3/4 inches right here. Here we go. And now I'm just going to check that my points are on top of each other. And yes, I can see they match up. And I'm going to use an owl that came with my cam setting kit and poke a hole through both exterior and the lining of the bag. So at this point, you do want to make sure that your lining matches up your exterior perfectly and there are no puckers. Once I do that, I'm going to put a snap through one side, use my pliers, squeeze. One part is in, done, and now let's do the other one. And here I'm going to do exactly the same thing. Make a hole through the mark. And that's it. All done. Thanks for watching, guys. Please push the like button if you enjoyed this video, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel so you don't miss any of my upcoming videos.